Whoever hosts decides. Edith had said it so many times that it was practically carved into the dining room table. She used it to keep my mother out of Thanksgiving, to seat me at the kids' table at 34, and to announce that I still was not really family. But 7 weeks later, Edith was standing in my kitchen with her coat still on, staring at a place card that did not have her name anywhere near the head of the table. My husband was beside me. My mother was already inside, laughing with the cousins Edith had spent years controlling. And when Edith demanded to know who had given me the right to decide anything, I opened the family group chat, scrolled to her own message, and read her exact words back to her. The room went so quiet I could hear the oven timer ticking. But to understand why she had no answer, I have to go back to the Thanksgiving where she finally said the quiet part out loud. Before we go any further, thank you for being here. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, especially if you have ever had a family rule that only seemed to work in one person's favor. A quick note before I start. Some details have been changed for privacy and storytelling, but the emotions at the heart of this are real. Now let me take you back to the day I realized my mother-in-law had built an entire family tradition just to keep control. My name is Marisol, and when this happened, I was 34. I had been married to Daniel for 6 years, together for almost 9, and for most of that time I had tried to be the easy daughter-in-law. Not the favorite. I gave up on that early. Just easy. Easy meant I brought the side dish Edith assigned, even when she assigned it at the last second. Easy meant I smiled when she corrected my Spanish in front of people, even though she spoke exactly 3 phrases and 2 of them came from restaurant menus. Easy meant I let her call me Danny's wife instead of my name whenever she wanted to remind me that I had entered the family through a side door. Daniel's family had one big tradition. It sounded harmless when I first heard it. Whoever hosts decides. That was the whole sentence. The person who opened their home for a holiday controlled the menu, the timing, the guest list, the seating, the prayers, the photos, the leftovers, everything. No appeals, no negotiation. If you wanted to say, you hosted next time. The first time Edith explained it, I actually thought it was practical. I grew up in a family where everyone had opinions and nobody had storage space. My mom hosted Christmas Eve in a 2-bedroom apartment for 22 people more than once. And she did it with folding chairs, aluminum trays, and a rule that if you complained about the food, you were washing dishes. Compared to that, whoever hosts decides sounded clean. Then I watched how Edith used it. Edith hosted almost everything. Thanksgiving was hers. Easter was hers. Christmas dinner was hers. Memorial Day cookout, 4th of July, Daniel's father's birthday, even the Sunday after a cousin's graduation. If there was a table big enough to photograph, Edith wanted it in her house. And since she hosted, she decided. She decided that her church friend Bev could come to Thanksgiving because Bev has nowhere else to go, even though Bev's 3 adult children lived within 20 minutes. She decided that Daniel's brother Mark could bring whatever girlfriend he was dating that year, because young people need to feel welcome. She decided that my widowed mother, Lourdes, could not come because we need to keep it to immediate family. That phrase did a lot of work in Edith's house. Immediate family somehow included Edith's hairdresser, if the hairdresser had given her a good discount that month. It included the neighbor who watered her hydrangeas. It included Bev, who had once asked me if my mother was legal while taking a second helping of my arroz con gandules. But it did not include the woman who had raised me, who lived alone 15 minutes away, and who had lost my father 3 years into my marriage. The first Thanksgiving after my dad died, I asked Daniel if we could invite my mom. I asked in the gentle way you ask when you already know the answer might be weird. My mom will be by herself, I said. I don't want her eating turkey from the grocery store deli. Daniel looked uncomfortable before he even answered. I'll ask, he said. That was the first warning sign. In my family, if your spouse had a widowed parent alone on a holiday, you did not ask. You said, "We have one more coming," and everyone moved a chair. Daniel called Edith on speaker while I stood at the sink rinsing cilantro. "Mom," he said, "would it be okay if Lourdes came on Thursday?" There was a pause. Then Edith said, "To Thanksgiving?" "Yes." "Danny, you know how it works. Whoever hosts decides." "I know. I'm asking. And I'm saying this year is already full." I looked at him. His face tightened. "Full how?" he asked. "Full as in full," Edith said. "I have a seating chart. I have the grocery list done. I have my rhythm. It's not personal." It was personal. We all knew it was personal. But I was still new enough to the family that I told myself maybe I was being sensitive. That year, I split Thanksgiving. I went to Edith's from noon to 4, then drove to my mom's apartment with a plate I had made before we left because Edith did not send leftovers for people who had not been invited. My mother opened the door wearing the burgundy sweater my dad had bought her the year before he got sick. She had set one place at the table and pretended she had been about to eat. "Mija," she said, "you didn't have to come." "I wanted to." She looked behind me, like Daniel might be there. "He's with his family?" That hurt more than I expected. "He's coming after dessert," I lied. He did come, but 2 hours later because Edith had wanted family photos by the fireplace and then wanted help moving the extra chairs back to the basement. My mom acted like it was fine. She always acted like it was fine. That was one of the things that made it worse. After that, the pattern settled in. I would ask if my mom could come. Edith would say no. Daniel would push a little. Edith would invoke the rule. Whoever hosts, decides. Sometimes she dressed it up. If I invite one outside person, I have to invite everybody. Thanksgiving is complicated enough without adding new family dynamics. Your mother is lovely, Marisol, but this is our family tradition. The word "our" always landed with a little tap on the glass. Not loud. Just enough to remind me I was holding my drink in someone else's house, and I kept trying. That is the part I wish I could skip, because it makes me sound weaker than I want to sound. But I think a lot of people understand this. When you marry into a family, you don't want to be the person who starts the fight. You don't want to be the reason your husband has tension with his mother. You tell yourself, "It is only a few holidays." You tell yourself, "I can see my mom before or after." You tell yourself, "Maybe next year will be different." Next year was never different. Edith's house looked like a catalog in November. White pumpkins on the porch, copper leaves twisted around the banister. A wreath on the front door that probably cost more than my first car payment. She had a long dining table that seated 10, a breakfast nook that seated 4, and 2 folding tables she called the children's area, even after half the children had driver's licenses. Everything smelled like butter and sage. Everything looked warm. That was the trick. From the outside, Edith's holidays looked like the kind of thing you were lucky to be included in. Inside, you learned the rules. No one touched the thermostat. No one moved place cards. No one brought a dish unless Edith assigned it. No one took photos before Edith checked the background. No one mentioned politics, medical problems, or money unless Edith brought them up first. And no one questioned the guest list. Daniel had 2 siblings. Mark, the golden boy, who sold insurance and had the confidence of a man who had never been asked to clean up after a family meal in his life. And Rachel, Daniel's younger sister, who was kind, funny, and permanently tired from trying to keep Edith from noticing her. Rachel and I became friends by accident. At my second Thanksgiving, Edith handed me a stack of dessert plates and said, "Just put these near the kids. You'll be sitting there anyway." I thought she was joking. Rachel saw my face and appeared beside me like she had been summoned. "Come on," she said quietly. "I'll help." In the kitchen, while Edith was telling Bev about the correct way to roast Brussels sprouts, Rachel whispered, "Don't take it personally. She sat my college roommate at the kids' table when we were 22 because she had a nose ring." "Was your roommate a child?" "No, but the nose ring made Mom feel something, and that's basically the same thing." That was the first time I laughed in Edith's kitchen. Rachel was also the first person in Daniel's family who said my mother's name like she belonged in the room. "How's Lords?" she would ask while we washed serving spoons. "She's good. She made tamales last weekend." "Tell her I still think about the green salsa she sent over." Little things. But when you are being quietly excluded, little things become handholds. The holiday that changed everything was Thanksgiving last year. By then, my dad had been gone almost 4 years. My mom had gotten better at being alone, which is not the same as being okay. She had joined a morning walking group at the mall. She volunteered at the library twice a week. She kept my father's recliner in the same corner and still folded the throw blanket over the arm like he might come home and use it. In October, she asked me what we were doing for Thanksgiving while we were standing in the produce aisle at Aldi. She was choosing sweet potatoes like it was a serious legal proceeding. "Same as usual," I said. She didn't look up. "Edith's?" "Probably." "That's nice." The way she said it made my throat tighten. "Do you want to come?" I asked. She smiled like I had offered her something we both knew I did not actually have. "Mija, don't start trouble for me." "It's not trouble. It is with that woman." My mother almost never said anything bad about anyone. The fact that she called Edith that woman in public, next to a display of onions, should have told me how tired she was. That night, I told Daniel we needed to push harder. We were sitting on our couch with leftovers balanced on our knees. Our house was small, a 3-bedroom ranch we had bought 2 years earlier because it had good light and a kitchen big enough for my mother to declare, "This will do," which from her was basically a standing ovation. We had talked about hosting someday, but Edith always managed to claim holidays before anyone else got a calendar out. "My mom is alone again," I said. "I can't keep doing this." Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. "I know." "Do you? Because every year we ask, your mom says no, and then we just accept it like it's weather." He looked at me then. Not defensive, just ashamed. "You're right." That surprised me enough that I didn't answer. He set his plate down. "You're right. I've been avoiding the fight because I know how she gets. That's not fair to you. Or your mom." I wanted to be gracious. Instead, I said, "No, it's not." He nodded. "I'll call her tomorrow. Not ask. Tell her." The next evening, he called Edith from the den. This time, he did not put her on speaker at first, but our house is not large, and Edith had a way of projecting disappointment through drywall. "Mom, Lords is coming to Thanksgiving with us this year," Daniel said. I stood in the hallway holding a laundry basket and froze. There was a silence long enough for me to hear the furnace kick on. Then Edith said, "Excuse me?" "Marisol's mom shouldn't be alone. We're bringing her." "No, Daniel. You are asking if you may bring her, and I am telling you the answer is no." "Why?" "Because I am hosting." "That's not a reason." "It is the reason. Whoever hosts decides. That has always been the rule." "Your friend Bev is coming." "Bev has been coming for years." "She's not family." "She is like family." There it was. The magic phrase. Like family. My mother was actual family by marriage, by grief, by 6 years of birthday cards and soup when Daniel had the flu. Bev was like family because Edith liked having an audience. Daniel's voice changed. It got quieter. "Mom, listen to yourself." "No, You listen to me, Edith said. I have hosted Thanksgiving for this family for 28 years. I will not have my guest list dictated to me by your wife. My hands went cold around the laundry basket. Daniel said, This isn't Marisol dictating anything. This is me saying my mother-in-law is alone on Thanksgiving. Then go see her after. That's what we've been doing. Good. Then the system works. That sentence stayed with me. The system works. Daniel came out of the den 10 minutes later looking like someone had wrung him out. She said no, he said. I heard. I'm sorry. I wanted to say, sorry doesn't help. I wanted to say, then we're not going. I wanted to say all the things I should have said years earlier. Instead, because old habits are stubborn, I said, we'll figure it out. What I did not know yet was that Edith had already started figuring it out for us. 2 days later, the family group chat lit up. It was called Ramirez Holidays, even though half the people in it were not named Ramirez anymore. Edith sent a photo of her dining room table with the centerpiece already mocked up. White candles, mini pumpkins, napkins folded into little fans. Then she sent the schedule. Dinner at 2, photos at 1:30, dessert at 4, leftovers distributed at 5. No outside dishes unless assigned. Guest list final. Under that she typed, As always, whoever hosts decides the guest list and house rules. Please respect the host. I stared at the message for a long time. That was the first piece of documentation, though I did not know to call it that yet. At the time, it just felt like a slap with punctuation. Daniel replied before I could stop him. Mom, we still need to talk about Lourdes. Edith answered in less than a minute. Already discussed. The answer is no. I am hosting. Rachel sent me a private text immediately. I am so sorry. I typed. It's fine. Then I deleted it. Because it was not fine. I wrote, I'm tired. Rachel answered, Me too. Thanksgiving morning, my mother insisted I go. I don't want you fighting with Daniel because of me, she said while I stood in her apartment holding a casserole dish she had made for us to take, even though she had not been invited. We're not fighting because of you. Then, don't start today. Holidays make people stupid. My mother had a way of making wisdom sound like she was complaining about traffic. She had made pastelon because Daniel loved it. She wrapped the dish in 2 towels and tucked a note under the foil that said, For Danny. Not for Edith. Not for the family. For Danny. I hugged her in the doorway. She felt smaller than she used to. Come over after, she said. We will. Don't let her make you sit by the children again. I pulled back. Mom. She lifted one eyebrow. I know things. The fact that my mother knew, and had known, made something in me twist. Edith's house was already full when we arrived. Cars lined the curb. Mark's SUV was in the driveway because Mark always parked in the driveway, even though Edith told everyone else to leave it open for unloading. Through the front window, I could see Bev in a bright red cardigan, holding a wine glass and talking with her whole body. Daniel carried the pastelon. I carried flowers. I had chosen yellow mums because they looked cheerful, and because buying flowers for a woman who had banned your mother from dinner is one of those social rituals that makes you question civilization. Edith opened the door wearing an apron that said, Blessed Hostess. I wish I were making that up. There you are, she said, looking past me like my mother might have tried to sneak in under my coat. Happy Thanksgiving. Daniel kissed her cheek. Happy Thanksgiving. I handed her the flowers. These are lovely, she said, then immediately passed them to Rachel. Find something for these, would you? Rachel gave me a look over the stems. Inside, the house was hot. Not warm. Hot. Edith believed a holiday was not properly hosted unless everyone was slightly dehydrated. The dining room table was set for 10. The breakfast nook had 4 place settings. The folding table in the den had paper napkins, plastic cups, and a centerpiece made out of crayons in a mason jar. I saw my name there, Marisol, written in Edith's careful cursive on a little turkey-shaped place card, wedged between two children. One was 11, one was 13. Across from me was a booster seat for Mark's toddler. I stood still long enough that Daniel followed my eyes. "No," he said under his breath. Edith appeared beside us like she had been waiting. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "We needed to balance the tables." Daniel picked up my place card. "Mom, she's not sitting here." Edith's smile did not move. "Daniel, please don't start. She's 34. And the children love her. I love her too. She can sit next to me." Bev had gone quiet in the living room. So had Mark's girlfriend, whose name was either Tasha or Tanya. I had met her twice, and Edith kept calling her sweetheart, which meant Edith had not bothered to learn it either. Edith lowered her voice, but not enough. "The dining room is for family elders and original family." Original family, that one hit the room differently. Rachel stopped arranging the flowers. Daniel's father, Frank, who usually survived holidays by watching football with the volume too low to hear, looked up from the couch. Daniel said, "What does that mean?" Edith gave a small laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic." "You know what I mean." "No. Explain it." She glanced at me. For half a second, I saw irritation under the hostess' smile. "Marisol is part of the family through you, obviously, but she isn't really family in the same way. Not yet. These things take time." 6 years of marriage, 9 years together. My father buried, my mother alone. Me bringing assigned side dishes and flowers and smiling through Bev's questions. Not yet. I heard the sound of the kids' table paper napkins shifting in the heat vent. That is the detail I remember. Not the faces, not the smell of turkey. The small dry flutter of paper napkins while everyone waited to see what I would do. Daniel set my place card down on the dining room table beside his. "She's sitting with me?" he said. Edith's jaw tightened. "Fine," she said. "If that's how you want to begin the day." I should have left then. We both should have. But families are complicated, and humiliation does not always make you brave right away. Sometimes it makes you very quiet. Dinner was awful in the way only a beautiful dinner can be awful. The turkey was perfect. The gravy had no lumps. The potatoes were smooth. Every bite tasted like I had swallowed a coin. Bev sat across from me and said, "So your mother didn't come today?" I looked at Edith. She was cutting turkey with surgical focus. "No," I said. "She wasn't invited." The table went still for half a breath. Bev blinked. "Oh." Edith set down her fork. "Marisol," she said, with that warning tone mothers use when they want witnesses to think they are being patient. I smiled at Bev. "She's home. I brought her food this morning." Rachel looked down at her plate. Daniel's hand found my knee under the table. Bev, who either did not understand tension or enjoyed it, said, "That's a shame. There's always room for one more on Thanksgiving." I almost laughed. Edith's eyes flicked to Bev. "Not when one has planned properly." 1. Edith loved saying "one" when she meant herself. It made selfishness sound like etiquette. After dinner, while the men drifted toward football and the children chased each other through the hallway, Edith called everyone back for photos. This was another tradition. No one could leave until Edith had her fireplace picture. She arranged people by height, then by what she called balance, then by whether she liked their outfit. She put Mark and his girlfriend near the center. She put Daniel beside his father. She put me at the far edge next to a ficus that had seen better days. Rachel whispered, "If the plant gets a name card before you do, I'm leaving." I bit the inside of my cheek so I would not laugh. Then Edith clapped her hands. "Actually, one more. Original family only." There it was again. Original family. Mark's girlfriend stepped out immediately, looking relieved. I stepped back too. Rachel did not move. Rachel, Edith said. What? Original family. Marisol is Daniel's wife. And we took that photo. This one is just us. Daniel said, I'm not doing that. Edith's face hardened. Daniel. No. Frank sighed from the fireplace like a man watching rain come through a ceiling he had ignored for 10 years. Edie, he said quietly, just take the picture. She did. But she did it with the air of someone granting a pardon. By dessert, I had a headache from clenching my jaw. I helped Rachel in the kitchen because moving plates felt safer than sitting still. She scraped cranberry sauce into a glass container and said, I hate this. The cranberry sauce? My mother. I rinsed a spoon. That's a bigger problem. Rachel leaned against the counter. She looked exhausted. She did this to my friend Annika, too. Remember my baby shower? I did. Rachel's baby shower had been at Edith's house because Edith had insisted. Rachel's best friend Annika had arrived with a gift and left after 20 minutes because Edith told her, in front of 3 people, that the shower was mostly family and the dining room was already full. I thought that was a misunderstanding, I said. Rachel gave me a flat look. You are very nice. I'm learning. She lowered her voice. She makes these rules and then acts like they came down from a mountain, but she made them. Every single one. That sentence lodged somewhere in my mind. She made them. A few minutes later, Edith swept into the kitchen carrying the dessert plates we had not yet put out. Rachel, the pies need to be sliced thinner. People waste food when slices are too large. Rachel closed her eyes for 1 second. Okay, Mom. Edith turned to me. Marisol, Daniel tells me you were upset about your mother. I dried my hands slowly on a towel. My mother is alone today. Yes, I'm upset. Well, I hope you understand this is not personal. There are phrases people use when they know exactly how personal they are being. It feels personal, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. I had not used that tone with her before. Then perhaps you are choosing to take it that way. Rachel made a small sound like she had swallowed a word. Edith stepped closer. I have a responsibility to protect the atmosphere of my home. I don't know your mother well enough to include her in intimate family holidays. You know Bev? Bev is different. How? Edith smiled. Because I say so. There it was. Plain. Clean. No ribbon around it. Because I say so. Then she added the sentence that finally broke whatever patience I had been using as furniture. And to be honest, Marisol, your mother should understand boundaries at her age. I stopped drying my hands. Rachel said, Mom. Edith did not look at her. No. Really. I think part of the problem is that some families don't teach their daughters how to separate properly after marriage. I felt my face get hot, but my voice came out calm. Do not talk about my mother. Edith blinked, not because she was sorry, because she was surprised the chair had spoken. Excuse me? You can say no. You can hide behind your rule. You can seat me with children if that makes you feel powerful. But do not insult my mother in this kitchen. Rachel stared at me. Edith stared at me. For once, no one moved. Then Edith smiled, and it was the coldest expression I had ever seen on her face. This is exactly why I control the guest list. Holidays need a steady hand. Daniel walked in at that moment. He had heard enough to understand. His face changed. We're leaving, he said. Edith turned. Don't be ridiculous. Dessert hasn't even been served. We're leaving. Daniel, if you walk out right now, you are making a scene. He looked at me, not at her. Do you want to go? I nodded. That was all he needed. We got our coats. Edith followed us to the foyer, whispering angrily because the guests were still in the living room. "This is immature. You are embarrassing yourselves." Daniel opened the front door. She said, "If you leave, don't expect me to rearrange Christmas around a tantrum." Daniel stopped. "What does that mean?" Edith folded her arms. "It means this nonsense has shown me something. From now on, I think it's best if I host all major holidays permanently. That way there is no confusion. Everyone knows the rules. Everyone knows where they stand." The cold outside came through the open door. I remember it hitting my ankles. Daniel said, "Permanently?" "Yes. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. I should have formalized it years ago. Whoever hosts decides, and I host. That ends the discussion." That was the lowest, clearest version of the rule. Not a tradition, a lock. And because Edith could not help herself, she looked at me and added, "Maybe in a few more years, when everyone has settled, we can revisit what family means." Daniel took my hand. "Good night, Mom." We left. We drove straight to my mother's apartment. I cried in the car, which I hated. Not loud crying, just silent tears I kept wiping away with the sleeve of my sweater while Daniel drove like the steering wheel had offended him. "I'm sorry," he said. "Stop saying that." He flinched, and I regretted the sharpness, but not enough to take it back. "I need you to understand something," I said. "This isn't one dinner. This is years of you asking your mother to please treat me like a person, and then accepting no when she refuses." He nodded. His eyes stayed on the road. "I know." "No, Daniel. I don't think you do. She told me I wasn't really family, at Thanksgiving, in front of people. She kept my mother alone and then insulted her for being lonely." His hands tightened on the wheel. I heard. "Then what are we doing?" He did not answer right away. We stopped at a red light. The dashboard lit his face blue. "We're done letting her host everything," he said. I looked at him. "What?" "We're done." The light changed. He drove. "She wants the host to decide? Fine. We host." At the time, I thought he meant someday. Some vague future holiday after tempers cooled. But there was something different in his voice. "Christmas is 5 weeks away," he said. I stared at him. "Daniel. We have a house. We have a table. We can borrow folding chairs. Your mom can come. Rachel will come. Your mother will explode. She already exploded. We just keep pretending the smoke is weather." That was the first time I laughed that day, and it came out half broken. When we got to my mom's apartment, she opened the door before I knocked. She had been watching through the peephole. Mothers know. "What happened?" she asked. I tried to say, "Nothing," but my face did not cooperate. Daniel stepped forward with the pastelon dish, still wrapped in towels, because in all the chaos we had somehow brought it back. "Lords," he said, "I'm sorry." My mother looked at him for a long moment. Then she moved aside. "Come in. Food is hot. You can apologize after you eat." We sat at her little table eating the dish she had made for a dinner she had been barred from attending. Daniel told her everything. Not in a dramatic way, just plainly. The kids' table, original family, the kitchen, the permanent hosting declaration. My mother listened without interrupting. When he finished, she picked up her water glass, took one sip, and said, "That woman needs a hobby." I laughed so hard I had to put my fork down. Then Daniel said, "We want to host Christmas at our house, and we want you there from the beginning, not after, not with leftovers, at the table." My mother looked at me. "Is this true?" "Yes." "And Edith?" Daniel said, "Edith can come if she behaves." My mother made the sign of the cross so fast it looked like a reflex. Then I will bring flan, she said. That was the moment the plan began, though we did not call it revenge. Not then. Then it felt like survival. When we got home that night, Daniel opened the family group chat and stared at it. Edith had already posted a photo from Thanksgiving. The fireplace picture. The one where I was at the edge beside the ficus. Her caption said, "Grateful for family traditions and the wisdom to keep them." Rachel had not liked it. Neither had Daniel. He scrolled up to the earlier messages. The schedule. The guest list final. The line. As always, whoever hosts decides the guest list and house rules. Please respect the host. Daniel took a screenshot. Then he scrolled further back. Easter. Thanksgiving the year before. Christmas 2 years earlier. Edith had used the phrase over and over. Hosting means responsibility. Whoever hosts decides. My home, my menu, my list. If you want different rules, host next time. That last one made Daniel sit back. She actually said it, he said. Said what? He turned the phone toward me. If you want different rules, host next time. I looked at those words and felt something shift. Not rage. Rage is hot and fast. This was cooler, cleaner. So we host next time, I said. Daniel nodded. And we decide. Now, pay attention to that line, because it mattered later in a way Edith absolutely did not see coming. The next morning, Daniel sent a message to the family chat. He wrote it while sitting at our kitchen table with coffee he had forgotten to drink. Hi everyone. Marisol and I would like to host Christmas dinner this year at our house on December 25th at 3 p.m. We know Mom has hosted for years and we appreciate that, but it is our turn to open our home. Following the family tradition, whoever hosts decides the guest list and house rules. We will send details soon. Hope to see you all. He read it out loud twice. Too much? He asked. No. Too formal? No. Should I mention your mom? Not yet. He hit send. For 7 minutes, nothing happened. I know it was 7 because I watched the clock on the microwave like it was a medical monitor. Then Rachel replied, We'd love to come. Tell us what to bring. I exhaled. Mark sent a thumbs-up emoji, which was Mark's usual level of emotional labor. Frank wrote, Sounds good. Then Edith called Daniel. He let it ring. She called again. He let it ring again. Then she typed in the group chat. Christmas is traditionally at our house. Daniel replied, We know. We're hosting this year. She wrote, That does not work for me. He wrote, I'm sorry to hear that. We hope you can make it. I had never been more attracted to my husband than I was watching him type that sentence. Edith did not answer in the group chat. She sent him a private message instead. Call me. He did not. That afternoon she called me. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 28 seconds long. Marisol, it's Edith. I am trying to understand what you and Daniel think you are doing. Christmas is not a casual dinner you can just seize because you had hurt feelings. Call me back. I saved it. Not because I had a plan for it, not yet. I saved it because something in me had finally learned that Edith's words changed shape when she thought no one had kept them. Over the next week, the campaign started. Edith did not yell in the main group chat at first. She was too smart for that. She called people one by one. Rachel told me because Rachel called me after her own conversation and said, without hello, Mom is using the word usurper. I was at the grocery store buying cereal. I'm sorry, what? Usurper. Like you're coming for the throne of Thanksgiving with a sword. It's Christmas. I don't think historical accuracy is her priority. I leaned against the cart and closed my eyes. Rachel's voice softened. She told me you are splitting the family. She said Daniel is being manipulated. She said your mom is trying to replace her. That one made me open my eyes. My mom? Yeah. Apparently, Lords is the mastermind now. My mother, who thought online banking was an ambush, had somehow become the architect of a holiday coup. "What did you say?" I asked. Rachel was quiet for a second. "I told her we were coming to your house." I stood there in the cereal aisle with my hand on a box of Raisin Bran and felt my eyes sting. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." She hung up on me. "Still." "Also," Rachel said, "I want to help cook, not just bring something. Help." That mattered. Rachel had spent years being assigned tasks by Edith like she was a seasonal employee. Offering to help me was not just about food. It was choosing a side, quietly but clearly. "I'd love that," I said. By the end of that week, Edith had called almost everyone. Aunt Carol texted Daniel, "Is this true about Christmas? Your mother is very upset." Daniel wrote back, "Yes, we're hosting. We hope you can come." Cousin Paul wrote, "I don't want to get in the middle." Daniel replied, "No middle. Just dinner at our house if you'd like to come." Mark called Daniel and said, "Bro, can't you just let Mom have Christmas? You know how she is." Daniel put him on speaker with my permission. "That's the problem," Daniel said. "We all know how she is, and we keep arranging our lives around it." Mark sighed. "It's one holiday." I looked at Daniel. He looked back at me. He said, "It has been every holiday." Mark did not have a good answer for that, so he switched to logistics. "Is there going to be enough food?" That was Mark. The family could be collapsing, but he needed to know whether there would be ham. "Yes," Daniel said. "Are you making Mom's stuffing?" "No." There was a pause. Bold. I almost smiled. The truth was, the food scared me more than I wanted to admit. Edith had built part of her power on being excellent at hosting. That was the frustrating thing. She was good at it. Her table looked beautiful. Her turkey was never dry. Her timing was military. If she had been a little worse at hosting, people might have challenged her earlier. But tyrants with good gravy are still tyrants. Rachel came over the following Saturday with a notebook, 2 toddlers, and the haunted expression of a woman who had told her mother no. My mother came too, carrying a shopping bag full of recipes written on index cards. She and Rachel met properly for the first time in my kitchen. "I've heard so much about you," Rachel said. My mother smiled. "Good things?" Rachel looked at me. "Accurate things." Within 20 minutes, the 3 of us had the table covered in lists. Menu, guest list, chairs, allergies, timing, drinks, kid activities, parking. Daniel handled invitations. Not Edith-style invitations, where every yes felt like a favor granted. Actual invitations. He wrote, "We'd love to have you for Christmas dinner. Kids welcome. If you have anyone in your household who would otherwise be alone, please ask us. We'll make room." I read that last line 3 times. "We'll make room." It felt like the opposite of Edith's house. My mother pointed at the guest list. "You are inviting Edith?" "Yes," Daniel said. She nodded slowly. "Good." I looked at her. "Good?" "Yes. You don't become her to beat her." That sentence became one of our rules. We would not become Edith. We would not use hosting to humiliate people for sport. We would not create a new little kingdom in our dining room. We would host warmly. We would include people who had been excluded. But, and this was important, warmth did not mean giving an abusive person the microphone. That was where the mechanism sharpened. At first, I thought hosting meant we simply invited my mom and let Edith deal with it. Daniel thought the same. Rachel was the one who said, "What about Bev?" We were testing place settings at my dining table. My table sat 8 if everyone liked each other, 10 if everyone had narrow elbows. Folding tables would go through the living room, not the den. I refused to call anything the kids' table. Kids could sit with adults if they wanted. Adults could sit wherever they had a chair. What about Bev? Rachel asked again. Daniel frowned. What about her? Mom will bring her. Or try to. I had not thought of that. Rachel said, and Bev will make some comment about Lourdes, or about Marisol, or she'll report everything back to Mom if Mom decides not to come. My mother, who was cutting parchment paper into mock placemats, said, The red sweater lady? That's her, I said. My mother made a face. No. It was the cleanest no I had ever heard. Daniel leaned back. If we say Bev can't come, Mom will say we're hypocrites. Rachel tapped the notebook. No, you say guests who have been disrespectful to the hosts or their invited family are not included. That's Mom's standard. She says she protects the atmosphere of her home. Fine, you protect yours. There it was. Not revenge as cruelty, boundaries as equal application. I opened the family chat again and searched Edith's messages. Protect the atmosphere, respect the host, guest list final. My home, my list. Whoever hosts, decides. Edith had built a whole fence out of those words. For years, the fence faced us. Now we were simply standing on the other side of it. Daniel sent the guest details the next day. Hi everyone. Christmas dinner details below. Time, 3 p.m. Guest list. Invited family and partners. Lourdes, Aunt Carol, Cousin Paul and household, Rachel and family, Mark and guest, Mom and Dad. If anyone has a household member who would otherwise be alone, message us by December 18 and we'll do our best to make room. House rules. Everyone is seated together by household needs and comfort, not rank. No kids' table unless the kids ask for one. No comments about anyone's background, marriage status, accent, body, parenting, finances, or whether someone is really family. If someone cannot follow that, we will ask them to leave. Following the family rule, whoever hosts decides. We are looking forward to a peaceful holiday. Before he sent it, he looked at me. Too direct? I said. Send it. He sent it. This time, the silence lasted 9 minutes. Then Edith replied, Are you excluding my friends? Daniel wrote, We are hosting family Christmas dinner. The list is above. Edith wrote, Bev always comes. Daniel wrote, Bev has made disrespectful comments to Marisol and Lourdes. She is not invited to our home for Christmas. My phone sat on the table between us. Rachel was there, and my mother, and all 4 of us stared at the screen like it was a live wire. Edith typed. Stopped. Typed again. Then. So your wife is banning people now. Daniel's jaw moved. He wrote, Marisol and I are hosting together. Edith wrote, This is outrageous. Daniel wrote, You have always said whoever hosts decides the guest list and house rules. We are following that tradition. Rachel whispered, There it is. Edith did not answer in the group chat. She called Daniel 17 times that day. I know because his phone showed the number. 17. He answered once, on speaker, while I sat beside him at the kitchen table and Rachel listened from the doorway with a dish towel in her hands. Have you lost your mind? Edith said. Daniel closed his eyes. Hi, Mom. Do not. Hi, Mom, me. You are letting your wife humiliate me in front of the entire family. No one is humiliating you. You put rules in the chat aimed at me. If they don't apply to you, they shouldn't bother you. I looked at him. Rachel's eyebrows went up. Edith sucked in a breath. That sounded like Marisol. Daniel's eyes opened. It sounded like me. I am your mother. I know. Christmas is my holiday. Not this year. Her voice lowered. You are going to regret this. He did not answer right away. Then he said, Maybe, but I already regret not doing it sooner. She hung up. For a week, It looked like the whole thing might fall apart. That was the lowest point, and it did not feel dramatic while it was happening. It felt like checking your phone too much and finding another little bruise every time. Aunt Carol changed her RSVP from yes to maybe. Cousin Paul stopped answering. Mark texted Daniel. Mom says Dad might not come if Bev is excluded. Rachel called me crying because Edith had told her she was ungrateful and that helping me cook was joining a campaign. My mother offered to stay home. That hurt the most. She came over on a Wednesday afternoon with a grocery bag of plantains and said, too casually, "Maybe it is easier if I don't come." I was standing at the stove testing a sauce. I turned off the burner. "No. Mija. No." She set the bag down. "I don't want to be the reason everyone fights." That sentence cracked something in me, because it was exactly what Edith counted on. She counted on decent people making themselves smaller so she could call the room peaceful. I wiped my hands on a towel. "You are not the reason. But if I stay home, maybe Daniel's family can have Christmas without this." "Without what? Without being asked to treat you like a person?" Her face changed. I softened my voice. "Mom, please listen to me. If you stay home, she wins the same way she always wins, by making the kindest person in the room disappear." My mother looked down at the plantains. For a second, she looked so tired that I wanted to call the whole thing off and take her somewhere with room service. Then she said, "I bought enough for twice as many pastelitos." I let out a breath. "Good." She pointed at me. "But if that woman insults me, I am not promising Christian behavior." Fair. That night, Daniel and I sat on the living room floor surrounded by borrowed chairs. Our neighbors had lent us 6. Rachel had 4 in her garage. My mother had 2 folding chairs from the church basement that she insisted were not stolen, merely on extended mission. Daniel was quiet. "What?" I asked. He ran his thumb along the edge of a chair. "I'm scared no one will come." I wanted to tell him I was not scared, but that would have been a lie. Me too. "And I'm scared they will come and it will be awful." "Also yes." He gave a small laugh. Then his face folded a little. "I keep thinking about how many times I asked you to just get through it." I did not know what to say. He looked at me. "I made you manage my mother's feelings so I wouldn't have to." That was the kind of apology that actually cost something. I sat beside him. "You did." He nodded. "I'm sorry." This time I let the words land. "Thank you." We sat there among the mismatched chairs, and for the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt like we were on the same side of the door. The next morning, Rachel sent a screenshot. It was from a separate group chat Edith had created. The title was Christmas Concern. I was not in it. Daniel was not in it. Rachel had been added, probably because Edith still believed Rachel could be pressured back into place. Edith had written, "I will not attend an event where my own son allows his wife to dictate terms and exclude my dear friend. This is not how family behaves. If we reward this, Marisol will control every holiday going forward. I hope everyone thinks carefully before supporting this division." Then Aunt Carol had replied, "Edith, didn't you always say the host decides?" I read that line 3 times. Rachel's next message said, "Carol is coming." The dam did not break all at once. It cracked. Cousin Paul texted Daniel that afternoon, "We are coming. I don't want drama, but the kids like you guys." Mark called and asked if he could bring rolls. Daniel said yes. Mark said, "Mom is mad." Daniel said, "I know." Mark said, "Like Thanksgiving 2011 mad." I mouthed, "What is Thanksgiving 2011? Daniel waved me off like, "Later." Mark lowered his voice. "For what it's worth, Tasha says she's excited to sit somewhere that isn't next to Mom's centerpiece." So her name was Tasha. By December 22nd, everyone except Edith, Frank, and Bev had confirmed. Bev did not receive an invitation, but she sent me a Facebook message anyway. Hi Marisol. I hear there has been some confusion about Christmas. Edith is very hurt. I hope you understand that family traditions matter. Sometimes younger wives need to learn before changing things. Younger wives. I stared at the message, then showed it to Daniel. He said, "Do not answer." I wasn't going to. You had the look. What look? The one where your email would need legal review. He was not wrong. We did not answer Bev, but we did add her message to the folder. By then, yes, there was a folder. It lived on my laptop under the very boring name, Holiday Planning. Inside were screenshots of Edith's messages, the voicemails transcribed, the guest list, the house rules, and every time she had stated the hosting rule in writing. We were not planning to publish it. We were not going to send a manifesto. But we had learned something important. When a person controls a family by rewriting reality, you need receipts just to stay sane. Daniel said it best. "I'm not collecting ammunition," he told Rachel while she rolled cookie dough at our counter. "I'm collecting oxygen." Rachel nodded like she understood exactly. Christmas Eve, Edith finally wrote in the main group chat. "Your father and I will attend for 1 hour. I expect to be seated appropriately. We will not stay if this becomes uncomfortable." Daniel read it out loud. My mother, who was at the sink washing cilantro, said, "1 hour is enough for God to make a point." Rachel dropped a spoon. Daniel replied, "Glad you and Dad can come. Dinner is at 3. We are seating people in a way that works for the room. See you tomorrow." Edith answered, "I expect the host chair." I actually laughed. Not a big laugh. A tired one. Daniel wrote, "There is no host chair." Edith did not reply. What Edith did not know was that we had been very careful with the seating. Not petty. Careful. My mother was seated near the kitchen entrance because she liked to get up and help no matter what you told her. Rachel was near the kids because her youngest still needed help cutting food. Frank was placed near Daniel because Daniel still wanted to talk to his father. Edith was placed between Aunt Carol and Mark, two people who loved her enough to tell her to stop if needed. I was not at the head of the table. Neither was Daniel. There was no head. We had pushed 2 tables together into a long, uneven rectangle, covered them with the same white cloth, and used greenery down the middle to hide the gap. It was not magazine perfect. One borrowed chair had a scratch down the back. The plates did not all match. The centerpiece was too low in one spot and too high in another, but every place card had a name. Every person had a chair. No one had to earn their seat. Christmas morning, I woke up at 6 with my stomach already tight. Daniel was awake too. "You okay?" he asked. "No. Me neither." We lay there in the dark for a minute. Then he said, "Whatever happens, your mom eats at our table today." That was enough to get me up. The day moved fast after that. Oven on. Coffee made, table checked, bathroom cleaned again for no reason, ice in the cooler, kids' activity basket by the hallway, not because we were banishing them, but because crayons are better when they are not under the gravy boat. Rachel arrived at 11 with her husband, the kids, and a tray of cookies shaped like stars. "I stress baked," she said. "I can see that." There are 84. That is a cry for help. My mother arrived at noon with flan, pastelitos, and earrings so sparkly they could guide aircraft. "Too much?" she asked, touching one. "Absolutely not." She looked around my kitchen. "You need another towel." "Hello to you too." She kissed my cheek and got to work. By 2:30, the house smelled like garlic, cinnamon, ham, and roasted vegetables. People started arriving. Aunt Carol came with a poinsettia and hugged me longer than usual. "I'm glad you did this," she whispered. Cousin Paul came with his kids and a store-bought pie he seemed embarrassed about until my mother told him store-bought pie was proof of civilization. Mark arrived with Tasha and rolls. Tasha hugged me and said, "Thank you for inviting me by name." That sentence told me more than she probably meant it to. Frank arrived at 2:58, alone. Daniel's face flickered. "Where's Mom?" Frank took off his hat slowly. "Parking." That was when my stomach dropped. Because Edith did not simply park. Edith arrived. She came in at exactly 3:04 wearing a cream coat, pearl earrings, and the expression of a woman entering a courtroom where she expected the judge to be a personal friend. Behind her was Bev in the red cardigan. For 1 second, nobody moved. Edith smiled. "Merry Christmas," she said brightly. "I brought Bev." There it was. The trap, if you want to call it that. Although all we had done was state the rules and wait for Edith to prove she believed they did not apply to her. Daniel stepped forward before I could. "Merry Christmas, Mom." "Hi, Bev." Bev held up a foil-covered dish. I made green bean casserole. My mother was standing by the kitchen doorway wiping her hands on a towel. She looked at Bev, then at me, then very calmly went back into the kitchen. That restraint should have earned her a medal. Daniel said, "Mom, Bev isn't on the guest list." Edith's smile tightened. "Don't be rude, she's already here." "We said she was not invited." Bev gave a little laugh. "Oh, I'm sure that's just a misunderstanding." I walked over and stood beside Daniel. "It isn't," I said. Edith looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the calculation. She had expected Daniel to fold in the doorway because there were witnesses. She had expected me to be embarrassed. She had expected the old system to activate, the one where everyone made room because Edith had made refusal feel impolite. "Marisol," she said, "this is Christmas." "I know." "You are going to turn away a guest on Christmas?" There was the performance, the moral high ground she had built out of a situation she created. Daniel said, "We are not turning away a guest. We are enforcing the guest list we sent." Edith's eyes flashed. "You sound ridiculous." Aunt Carol appeared in the living room entrance. Mark stood behind her. Rachel was at the hall with one child on her hip. Everyone was watching. Daniel kept his voice even. "Bev has been disrespectful to my wife and to Lord's. She is not invited into our home today." Bev's mouth opened. "I have never been disrespectful." My phone was in my back pocket. I did not pull it out. Not yet. Edith stepped closer. "This is exactly what I warned everyone about. You are letting Marisol split this family." I felt Daniel shift beside me, but I touched his arm. I said, "Edith, you can come in. Frank can come in. Bev cannot. You do not get to speak to me that way in front of my family. I am speaking to you that way in my home." The room changed after that sentence. I felt it. Not because I said it loudly. I did not. But because it named the one thing Edith had spent years making sure no one else felt. My home. Edith stared at me. Then she laughed once. "Your home." Daniel's voice went cold. "Yes. Our home." Bev looked between them, suddenly less confident. "Maybe I should just wait in the car?" she said. Edith snapped, "No." That was a mistake. Not because it was cruel, though it was. Because it showed everyone that Bev was not the wounded guest. She was a prop Edith refused to put down. Frank sighed. "Edie." "Do not start with me," Edith said. My mother came back from the kitchen then. She had taken off her apron. I noticed that immediately. She walked to my side, not in front of me, not behind me, beside me. "Hello, Edith," she said. Edith looked at her like she had found a fingerprint on silverware. "Lords." My mother smiled politely. Smiled. "Merry Christmas." Bev looked at my mother and, because she had learned nothing from being uninvited for disrespect, said, "Well, this is awkward, isn't it?" My mother's smile did not move. Only for some. Rachel made a sound from the hallway that might have been a cough and might have been joy. Edith's face flushed. "I will not be treated like this," Daniel said. "Then you don't have to stay." That was the first consequence. Small, but real. For the first time in all the years I had known her, Edith had shown up expecting the house to rearrange itself around her, and the house did not move. She turned to the room. "Is everyone seeing this?" No one answered. She looked at Mark. "Mark?" Mark shifted his weight. Tasha slipped her hand into his. "Mom," he said. "They did say Bev wasn't invited." Edith looked like he had slapped her with a roll. She turned to Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol lifted both hands. "You always say the host decides." There it was. A second crack. Edith's eyes went to Rachel. Rachel bounced her toddler once on her hip and said, "I'm not doing this today." For a woman who had spent decades directing rooms, Edith suddenly had no one taking direction. So she did what she always did when charm failed. She reached for authority. "Fine," she said. "If you insist on humiliating me, then I will need to approve the rest of the arrangements before I decide whether to stay. Where are we seated?" Daniel said. "The place cards are on the table." She walked past us into the dining room with Bev still hovering in the doorway. Everyone followed at a distance, drawn by the same terrible curiosity that makes people slow down near an accident. Edith scanned the table. Her face changed when she saw my mother's place card near the center cluster, written in Daniel's handwriting. Lords. Not Mrs. Alvarez, not Marisol's mother. Lords. Then she saw her own. Edith. Between Carol and Mark. Not at the end. Not beside the serving dishes. Not in a command position because there was no command position to occupy. She picked up the card like it was contaminated. "What is this?" Daniel said. "Your seat. This is not appropriate." "It's a chair, Mom." "Do not be cute with me. I should be seated as the senior hostess." I said, "You are not the hostess." The words landed harder than I expected. Edith turned slowly. "Excuse me?" My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my voice stayed even. "You are not hosting today. We are." She looked around the room again, like someone might rescue her from grammar. "After everything I have done for this family, you think you can erase me with a place card?" "No," Daniel said. "We think you can sit with everyone else." That was the part Edith could not tolerate. Not exclusion, equality. If we had banned her outright, she could have become a martyr. If we had seated her in the garage, she could have pointed at our cruelty. But a normal chair at a normal table with a normal name card gave her nothing clean to attack. So she attacked the rule. "I do not recognize this," she said. Daniel frowned. "Recognize what?" "This so-called hosting. Christmas is mine. Thanksgiving is mine. Everyone knows that. You cannot just declare yourselves hosts because you want revenge." There was that word. Revenge. It sounded ugly in her mouth. Maybe because she knew the thing she was really naming was consequence. I pulled out my phone. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough that Edith saw it. She narrowed her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Checking something." My hands were steady, which surprised me. I opened the family group chat. I had starred the messages, so I did not have to scroll far. I said, "Thanksgiving schedule, November 14th. You wrote, "As always, whoever hosts decides the guest list and house rules. Please respect the host." Edith's mouth tightened. I scrolled. Easter. You wrote, "Hosting means responsibility. Whoever hosts decides." I scrolled again. Christmas 2 years ago. You wrote, My home, my menu, my list. Aunt Carol murmured, "Oh, Edith." I kept my eyes on the screen, because if I looked at Edith too long, I might lose the calm. And last year, when Rachel asked if Annika could come to the shower after her sitter canceled, you wrote, "If you want different rules, host next time." Rachel went very still. Edith's face shifted. That message had been aimed at Rachel, not me. She had forgotten it was still there. Daniel said, "So we hosted next time." The room was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of cartoons from the den. Edith looked at Daniel, then at me, then at my mother. Her eyes were bright, but not with tears, with fury. "You collected my messages?" I lowered the phone. "You sent them to all of us. To use against me." "No, to understand the rule." That was not a clever line. It was just true. She pointed at me. "You are a manipulative little usurper." Daniel stepped forward. Enough. His voice filled the room in a way I had rarely heard. "Do not call my wife names in our house." Edith recoiled, not physically, but something in her expression pulled back. Daniel had corrected her before. He had argued. He had pleaded. This was different. This was a line. Frank said quietly, "Edie, sit down or let's go." She turned on him. "You too?" He looked tired, older than usual. "I'm hungry," he said, "and I'm tired of fighting about chairs." It was such a small sentence, almost funny, but it broke the performance, because that was what Edith had turned the family into. People tired of fighting about chairs. People tired of negotiating around invitations and place cards and invisible ranks. People tired of calling control tradition because it came with matching napkins. Edith stood there with my phone screen still lit in my hand, her own words sitting between us like a signed contract. Then she said the thing I had been waiting for without knowing it. "I am Daniel's mother. I decide what is appropriate for this family." That was the old order in one sentence. And I had the answer. I looked at her, and I did not raise my voice. Whoever hosts, decides. The silence after that was different from the others. Before, the room had been tense. This time, it was still. Edith blinked. Once, twice. Her mouth opened, then closed. I watched the understanding move across her face. It was not instant. It came in pieces. First, she realized I had quoted her. Not paraphrased. Quoted. Then she realized everyone else recognized it too. Then she realized she could not argue against it without admitting that the rule had only ever meant Edith decides. And finally, slower than the rest, she realized what the rule meant now. It meant my mother was welcome because we welcomed her. It meant Bev was not because we did not. It meant the seating chart was ours. It meant the house rules applied to her. It meant she could attend as a guest, on equal footing, or she could leave. What she could not do anymore was stand in the doorway of someone else's home and call herself the law. Her fingers tightened around the place card until the edge bent. No one rescued her. That was the part that made it real. For years, someone always stepped in. Frank soothed. Mark joked. Daniel folded. Rachel disappeared into the kitchen. I swallowed it. My mother stayed home. The whole family machine existed to spare Edith the discomfort of hearing no. This time, the machine did not start. The oven timer beeped. It was absurdly loud. My mother turned it off without taking her eyes off Edith. Edith looked at Daniel. "Are you going to let her speak to me like that?" Daniel's face was sad, not angry. Sad. "She is repeating your rule." That is not what I meant." There it was. Aunt Carol said softly. "Then what did you mean?" Edith's head snapped toward her. Carol did not back down. "Because we have all been following it for years. If it only works in your house, then it was never a family tradition. It was just your preference." Edith looked wounded in a way that might have moved me once. It did not move me then. Maybe because I finally understood that her hurt was not from being mistreated. It was from being matched. Bev, still in the foyer with her casserole cooling in her hands, cleared her throat. Edith, maybe I should go. Edith did not answer her. Bev waited one more second, then set the casserole awkwardly on the entry table. Merry Christmas, she said to no one in particular, and left. The front door closed softly behind her. That sound did more than any speech could have. Edith's brought-in witness had chosen the parking lot over the performance. Edith stared at the door. Then she looked back at me. For one wild second, I thought she might apologize. I really did. Not a full apology. Edith was not built for those. But maybe a small, stiff, fine. Maybe she would sit down and eat ham and complain privately later. Instead, she said, "You will regret teaching me how you want holidays handled." Daniel said, "Mom, this is your choice. Sit down, be kind, and have dinner, or leave." You would throw me out on Christmas. No, I'm inviting you to stay under the same rules as everyone else. That line mattered. It still matters when I think about it, because it made the difference clear. We were not doing to Edith what she had done to my mother. We were not barring her because we disliked her. We were not inventing a private definition of family that removed her. We were offering her a seat with boundaries. She just hated the boundaries more than she wanted the seat. Frank took off his coat. Edith looked at him like he had committed treason. "Frank." He hung the coat on the rack. "I'm staying." The room sucked in a breath. Edith's face changed again. This was the deeper understanding. Not the rule. Not the group chat. Frank. Frank, who had spent decades smoothing things over, had chosen dinner over obedience. Mark pulled out the chair beside Edith's place card. "Mom," he said carefully, "just sit." Rachel added, "Please, for once." I saw it then. Edith had not lost a holiday. She had lost the fear that made everyone orbit her. She stood perfectly still, the cream coat, the pearls, the bent place card in her hand. Then she placed the card back on the table. Not neatly, but back. "I need air," she said. She walked out. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Frank said very quietly, "Start without her." So we did. I will not pretend the first 10 minutes were easy. They were strange. Everyone spoke too politely. People passed dishes with the focus of bomb technicians. The empty chair between Carol and Mark sat there like a question. Then my mother asked Tasha how she and Mark met. Tasha said, "At a dental office, actually." Mark groaned. "Please don't tell this story." That, of course, meant she had to tell it. By the time she got to the part where Mark, still numb from a filling, tried to ask for her number and drooled on his own shirt, Rachel was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. Aunt Carol nearly choked on a roll. Frank smiled into his plate. The house loosened. Food helps. Warm food in a room where no one is being ranked helps even more. My mother's pastelitos disappeared first. Rachel's cookies came out before dessert because the kids negotiated like union lawyers. Cousin Paul's store-bought pie was praised sincerely. Daniel forgot to carve the ham in perfect slices and no one died. Halfway through dinner, Frank leaned toward my mother and said, "This flan is better than anything I've had in years." My mother patted his hand. "Careful. Compliments create obligations." Frank laughed. I had known him 6 years and had maybe heard him laugh like that twice. Edith came back after 23 minutes. I know, because I checked the clock when she left and when the door opened again. She had taken off her coat in the car. Her eyes were a little red from the cold, not crying. She walked into the dining room, saw that dinner had started, and stopped. No one jumped up. No one apologized for eating. Daniel stood halfway. "There's food in the kitchen if you want a plate." Edith looked at him, then at the table, then at the empty chair. She sat down. That was it. No speech. No apology. No dramatic embrace. She sat down in the chair she had declared inappropriate 20 minutes earlier. Rachel passed her the rolls. Edith took one. For the rest of dinner, she behaved. Stiffly, coldly, but she behaved. And somehow, that made the victory feel bigger than if she had stormed out. Because the rule had not only blocked her, it had contained her. After dessert, something happened that I still think about. My mother was in the kitchen wrapping leftovers. Edith came in with her plate. I was by the sink, close enough to hear, far enough that neither of them had to acknowledge me. Edith set the plate down. The flan was very good, she said. My mother looked at her. Thank you. Edith adjusted a bracelet on her wrist. Daniel likes custard desserts. My mother smiled slightly. I know. He eats like a man who is not hugged enough by dessert. I looked down at the sink so Edith would not see my face. For 1 second, Edith looked confused. Then, against her will, she almost smiled. Almost. You are very direct, Edith said. My mother covered the flan with foil. At my age, indirect takes too long. That was all. It was not friendship. It was not healing. But it was 2 women in the same kitchen, and one of them had not been allowed through the front door a month earlier. Later, while people gathered coats and containers, Edith pulled Daniel aside near the hallway. I did not follow, but our house is small, and again, Edith projected. You made your point, she said. Daniel answered, I hope so. Do not expect me to forget this. I'm not asking you to forget it. I'm asking you to understand it. Understand what? That your wife dislikes me? That my wife is my family. Her mother is my family. Rachel's friends matter. Mark's partners have names. People are not temporary until you approve them. There was a long pause. Then Edith said, quieter, You embarrassed me. Daniel said, You embarrassed Marisol for years. That is different. No, Mom. It felt different to you because you were the one doing it. I stood in the kitchen holding a stack of plates and felt that sentence settle over the whole night. Edith did not answer. She and Frank left at 7:30. Before she walked out, she turned to me. Thank you for hosting, she said. It was stiff, almost painful. The words sounded like they had been dragged over gravel. But she said them. I said, You're welcome. No hug, no fake warmth, just the exchange. After the door closed, the house went quiet for about 3 seconds. Then Rachel whispered, Did she just thank you for hosting? Mark said, I think a seal opened somewhere. Aunt Carol smacked his arm. My mother said, Do not insult seals. We all laughed. Real laughter. The kind that empties the room of what was stuck in it. The aftermath did not turn Edith into a different person. I want to be clear about that. People like Edith do not lose one confrontation and become gentle grandmothers in cardigans. She sulked. She made comments. She told a few people she had been ambushed by screenshots, which was an interesting way to describe being quoted accurately. But the family changed. That was the part she could not undo. In January, Aunt Carol offered to host Easter brunch. She put it in the group chat before Edith could claim it. I'd like to host Easter this year. Same family rule. Host handles guest list and house rules. All are welcome if they are kind. Rachel immediately replied, We'll be there. Daniel replied, Sounds great. Mark replied, Can I bring rolls? I stared at that message and laughed until Daniel asked what was wrong with me. Edith did not answer for 6 hours. Then she wrote, Fine. 1 word. 4 letters. A minor miracle. At Easter, Aunt Carol invited her neighbor, a widower named Sam, because he was alone. No one asked whether he was original family. Edith started to say something when she saw him, then looked around the room and apparently decided the air was not favorable. She sat down. In June, Rachel hosted Father's Day. She invited Annika, the friend Edith had pushed out of the baby shower. Annika came with flowers and a cake shaped like a toolbox, because Rachel's husband fixes everything badly. Edith was polite enough to her that Rachel texted me from the bathroom, "Is this growth or fear?" I wrote back, "Take the win." Thanksgiving came around again faster than I expected. That was the real test. For 28 years, Thanksgiving had been Edith's throne. Everyone knew it. Everyone waited to see if she would announce plans. She did, in September. Thanksgiving at our house, as usual. Details to follow. No mention of the rule. No guest list final. No, my house, my list. Daniel looked at the message, then looked at me. "What do you think?" I thought about it for a long time. I thought about my mom alone with deli turkey. I thought about the kids' table. I thought about the kitchen, the foyer, the place card bent in Edith's hand. Then Rachel replied in the group chat before either of us did, "Thanks, Mom. Can you confirm Lords is invited?" I stared at the screen. Daniel whispered, "Rachel." Aunt Carol added, "And Sam, if he doesn't have plans?" Mark added, "Tasha too, obviously." One by one, the family did something they had never done before. They did not wait privately to see what Edith would allow. They asked openly. Edith took 42 minutes to respond. "Yes. Lords is invited. Tasha too. Sam if Carol wants to bring him." Then, a minute later, "Please let me know about dietary restrictions." I read it twice because I genuinely thought I had misunderstood. My mother, when I told her, said, "Maybe she was visited by 3 spirits." Mom. What? It is seasonal. Thanksgiving at Edith's that year was not warm the way Christmas at our house had been warm. Edith was too careful for warmth, but my mother sat at the dining room table, not the breakfast nook, not after dessert, the table. Bev was there too because Edith was hosting and she decided. That was the rule. But Bev did not ask my mother if she was legal. She did not call me a younger wife. She said hello, complimented the pastelitos my mother had brought, and then spent most of dinner talking to Aunt Carol about knee surgery. At one point, Edith stood to take the fireplace photo. Everyone braced. She arranged people by height, then stopped. I could almost see the old phrase rising in her mouth. Original family only. Instead, she said, "Let's get everyone in." Everyone. The word was small. It did not fix the past. It did not give my mother back the holidays she spent alone. It did not erase the years I spent smiling from the edge of the frame. But it was different. And sometimes different is where better starts. The ironic part is that Edith's rule survived. Whoever hosts decides. We did not abolish it. We made it honest. Hosting became rotation instead of occupation. Aunt Carol took Easter. Rachel took Father's Day. Mark and Tasha hosted a summer cookout and served hot dogs with the seriousness of a state dinner. My mother hosted Christmas Eve at her apartment again, and yes, Edith came. She brought a poinsettia and stood in my mother's doorway looking like she had never entered a building without controlling the thermostat. My mother welcomed her anyway. "Come in, Edith," she said. "There is always room for one more." I looked at Edith when my mother said it. Just a glance. She heard the echo. I know she did. Her face tightened for half a second, then she stepped inside. That is where things stand now. Not perfect. I don't want to sell you a fairy tale. Edith is still Edith. She still has opinions about napkin placement. She still says things like, "One does not serve salad in that bowl," as if the bowl has a criminal record. She still tries, every now and then, to steer the room back toward herself. But now the room knows it can choose not to turn. Daniel changed too. That mattered more to me then Edith changing. He stopped treating peace as the absence of his mother's anger. He started treating peace as the presence of respect. Those are not the same thing. A few months after that Christmas, he found me in the kitchen looking at the place cards I had saved. I had kept 4. Mine, Daniel's, my mother's, and Edith's bent one. I do not know why. Maybe because objects help me believe things happened. He picked up Edith's card and ran his thumb over the crease. "Do you ever feel bad?" he asked. I knew what he meant. I thought about the doorway. Bev with the casserole. Edith's face when Frank took off his coat. The silence after I quoted her. "Sometimes," I said. He nodded, but not guilty. He looked at me. "What's the difference?" I set the cards back in the drawer. I feel bad that it had to happen that way. I don't feel guilty that it happened. That is still the truth, because the point was never to take Edith's family away from her. It was to stop letting her decide who counted as family in the first place. She built a rule because she thought it would keep her in control forever. She repeated it so often that everyone else started mistaking it for tradition. She used it to exclude a widow, humiliate a daughter-in-law, and keep her adult children orbiting her dining room like planets. Then one year, we hosted. We wrote the guest list with room for the people she left out. We set rules that protected the people she liked to target. We gave her the same choice she had given everyone else for years, only without the cruelty hiding inside it. Attend respectfully or don't attend. And when she demanded to know who had given us that right, all I had to do was read her own words back. Whoever hosts decides. She was right about one thing. A host does set the tone of a home. She just never imagined what would happen when the tone was kindness, and she was the one expected to follow it. So if you have ever been told that a family rule is sacred, look closely at who benefits from it. Look at who gets protected and who gets pushed out. Look at whether the rule still applies when someone else holds the door. Because sometimes the best revenge is not breaking the rule. Sometimes it is hosting next time.